What happens when a player who could clearly be one of the best in the world presents a risk to your franchise system centered entirely around stability? This is the case with Sinatraa, and how this question comes about. But before we can answer it, we need to explain how we even got here. Sinatraa began his esports career in Overwatch, reaching rank 2 on the ranked ladder at just 16 years old. As a result, he dropped out of high school to play professionally and joined the San Francisco Shock for the first season of the Overwatch League.
I'm J1 and I go by Sinatraa in game. I play for the San Francisco Shock as a DPS.
After an incredible year of competition in 2019, which saw him win the Overwatch League title, the League MVP award, the Overwatch World Cup with Team USA, and the MVP in that tournament as well, he was regarded as the undisputed best player in the world.
Now I have to ask, you got the Overwatch League MVP, now you get the Overwatch World Cup MVP. Are you the best player in the world?
Yeah.
Yes! There you have it!
Nothing could really stop him, apart from himself. In a shock move, he decided to leave everything from Overwatch behind. The shock, the league, and even the whole game. Sinatraa had decided to switch to Valorant, playing with Sentinels for the start of Valorant Esports. Many criticised the decision, with no guarantee that he would reach the same heights in this new game. But after the first few tournaments, it was clear that he could.
Sinatraa misses one but gets the second. That's a triple kill. Oh, 4. Oh my goodness. And now the showstopper to get it. And he got some. Oh my gosh.
Sentinels had a near flawless run early on in Valorant, with Sinatraa consistently showing his star power.
Right. But like, this guy's like probably the best player in the world right now in this game. Like, honestly, in another game is crazy.
And going into the official Valorant Champions Tour, the future looks bright for Sentinels and Sinatraa. He could finally show that he belonged on the international stage, not just in Overwatch, but Valorant as well. That was until he stepped away again. But this time, it wasn't his choice. Sinatra's ex-girlfriend Cleo made extremely serious allegations against him of sexual abuse and emotional manipulation, among other things. This video is not about these allegations, and I obviously don't know any more than any of you, but the conclusion of these allegations were an internal investigation from Riot and Sentinels. Riot eventually gave him a 6-month suspension from competing in any Riot-affiliated events, citing him being uncooperative during the investigation. He was also replaced on Sentinels by TenZ, who ended up taking his team to the first global Valorant title. And since that point, Sinatraa hasn't competed in Valorant. He eventually returned to streaming and promised to come back to competition in April of last year, but it didn't pan out that way. It seemed that he wasn't going to make a return at all, despite still clearly being an incredible player who would make waves in the scene if he did. That was until a few weeks ago. Heading into Valorant's first year of franchising, the open qualifiers for the second tier of competition, Challengers, were beginning. There were rumours of Sinatraa creating a team, but it wouldn't be confirmed until just before the last chance qualifier, a team's final chance to make it into the Challengers League. The team was called Untamable Beasts and would consist of Sinatraa, Marved, Zoms, Prod, and Dizzy, which is a pretty stacked team of individuals, although with no practice and a focus more on content than gameplay, they wouldn't make it into the league. They actually did do quite well, beating teams who scrim regularly, with Marved and especially Sinatraa looking individually incredible.
Last player standing.
40 on Jet.
One enemy remaining.
Scanning ahead. There they are.
Oh, too good.
But let's imagine for a second that Untamable Beasts did make it through, or that Sinatraa accepts one of the offers he's had to play for another Challengers team, an example being one from God's Reign in India, which I don't see happening, but it is possible. And if the team he played with in Challengers happened to win, he'd get a spot in franchising, the big money, exclusive tier 1 system for only the top level of Valorant pros and orgs. That'd give Sinatraa his chance to prove he still has what it takes at the very top level of Valorant. If Sinatraa was consistently playing in tier 1 competition, there's no doubt he would be one of the top players in the game. His movement is unmatched by anyone in the scene, and combined with his incredible game sense and aim, it's a perfect formula to be a top player. And surely there's no problem with him actually playing, right? I mean, he's served his suspension, and Riot had no problem with him playing in the open qualifiers, so naturally him playing in franchising would be okay. That might not be the case, however. There's multiple reasons why Sinatraa might be barred from playing in franchising, and the first is to do with sponsors and stability. If Sinatraa was playing in Valorant franchising, it might lead certain companies to not want to sponsor the league, so they're not tied to a player who has those negative allegations against him. They might not want to be seen as supporting that behaviour, and so could drop out of any deals with Riot. That would obviously be terrible for Riot from a financial point of view, and so he could be stopped from playing in the league altogether. There's also the possible factor of the allegations progressing into charges if Clio decided to reopen the police investigation, and then Riot could be seen as a company who supports Sinatra's actions. Franchising is a system designed for financial stability and player security, and introducing Sinatraa to the league could put those two things in danger. And I'm sure it's in Riot's best interest to not be associated with accusations of this nature, given their own troubles with misogynistic work environments previously. The next reason that Sinatraa might not be able to play in franchising is much more immediate though. Although there was a lot of support shown for Sinatra's return to competition in the Open qualifiers, there were others who took the complete opposite stance. A notable reply to the announcement came from Mitchman, a long-standing Valorant caster, who responded with these emojis. He obviously wasn't pleased with the news, and that brings about the question, what if casters, such as Mitch or another caster, refused to cast his games? You either don't have casters for any games with him in, which isn't practical, or you remove either the casters or Sinatraa from the equation. I don't imagine Riot would fire casters over that, so it leaves only one option. Don't forget that it's not only casters that could refuse to do their job due to feelings over a player. Observers, analysts, hosts, any of these roles, given enough of them refuse, could force Riot to do something. And so they're left with two options. The first is to let him play, given that he has no active suspension and therefore should have no real reason to not be allowed to. This would invoke the possible consequences I've already mentioned, or they can ban him from the league. I don't know which path Riot would take if this situation actually did arise, but if Sinatraa was barred from the franchising league, would he be barred from competing in Ascension as well, since it leads directly in? If not, it'd mean any team he won Ascension with would have to lose a player by default going into the next season, and that he'd have to find a new team. Imagine a cycle of Sinatraa taking a team into franchising, not being allowed in himself, then doing it again for years on end. But that begs the question, would that take away from how competitive Valorant is? When you have a player with as much skill as Sinatraa has, would manually forcing him into lower levels of competition be against competitive integrity when you know he could be one of the best? And what happens if the same situation applies to another player in the future? Obviously, if a player has an active suspension, they can't play, but the case is different here. Those are questions we might never have to answer though, as it seems like Sinatraa isn't making competitive Valorant his priority right now. If a similar thing happens with a new player though, it will be interesting to see how Riot handles this in a franchise system. It goes without saying that you shouldn't harass anyone mentioned in this video. I know Sinatraa has a lot of fans who want to see him play at the top level, but don't let your support turn into hate towards someone else. If you found this video interesting or learned anything from it, please do subscribe. I've been Commend, and thanks for watching.